Hey everybody, welcome back to H4G Gaiden. I'm Tony.
I'm Richie.
H4G Gaiden is our sideshow where we're talking about gaming news, gaming topics, and just whatever is on our minds, mostly gaming-wise, of course. Now, Richie, you brought up a good topic regarding bosses the other day.
The other day being like 3 months ago.
Yes.
We've been trying to shoot this for so long, but we kept having to cancel on each other because we're flaky sons of bitches.
Yeah, we don't really like each other very much. Mostly just have a tentative and very fragile working relationship.
Also, don't ever grow up, kids that watch this show, because being an adult blows.
Yes, that is also extremely true. It is truly the ultimate crappy boss of life. But that said, your whole concept for this episode was that bosses often really suck.
And they really do. I'm having a hard time even just like thinking of games that I've played recently where I've been really impressed with like a boss fight, you know?
Yeah, and you want that thrilling, challenging boss fight because they're supposed to be these amazing, exhilarating punctuations for segments of the game, but I feel like oftentimes developers just don't know what to do with them, or maybe they get lazy, or whatever. And there are a couple different kind of bad boss types that we broke down and categorized.
And I feel like the difficulty curve is where things get off the rails more often than not. And so many of the bosses that I fight are either way too easy. I would say that's probably the biggest category of boss fights that I encounter that I'm not impressed with, but there are also some that are just like either impossibly hard or just frustrating to the point of not being enjoyable.
Yeah. To chime in there, probably on the way too easy end of things, I was playing Mario Odyssey recently, and again, by recently, I mean months ago. But amazing game, right? But all of the mini-bosses, you said the name of them,
The Brutals.
God, why am I thinking Grumbles?
they're rabbits, so they like to breed.
Oh, okay, there we go. The mini-bosses were essentially just different slight variations of each other. You have to constantly be fighting them in every world, and they're your standard Mario 3 hits and they leave sort of scenario. And you always know it's gonna be 3 hits. You know, there's no challenge, there's no surprise, there's like a little twists and turns here and there, but nothing overly challenging. And I just found that those mini boss fights were very pointless.
Yeah, they don't add an awful lot to the game. The variety that they add is of such little consequence that it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But I've had similarly bad luck with the Switch with bosses that are way too easy. And I'm looking at Breath of the Wild.
Oh, yeah.
Another fantastic game, beautiful in pretty much all other ways. But you know, I mean, Ganon really hasn't been that great of a boss fight in any Zelda game. I don't think I'm going to anger too many people by saying that.
There are a couple instances. I enjoyed the Wind Waker and Twilight Princess end battles because it got nitty-gritty and it was actually a sword fight between like 2 guys. And I thought that was cool. But yeah, I mean, Breath of the Wild is so vast, so epic. And it kind of falls into this other category of not only being too easy, but we mentioned a category of sort of just being anticlimactic boss battles, especially for an end boss battle of a gorgeous game. It just felt easy.
Yeah, and you get a 2-for-1 because the first fight against Calamity Ganon, because the Wild Beast Ganon is the final fight. So you've got Calamity Ganon, and if you've done all of the temples,
Divine Beasts.
Right, if you've done all the Divine Beasts, he starts off at half health.
Yes.
Which is great, because I don't really think they change up his pattern very much if you start from the full life bar.
Very minimally, yeah, if anything.
Yeah, it's because I had only done 3 beasts when I got up to that point, because I was only going in there to get the Hylian shield, but then I was like, what the fuck, why not?
Yeah.
And I had more problems with the Lyons going through Hyrule Castle than I had actually fighting Calamity Ganon.
Yeah, the Lyons are challenging. You feel like there's a serious threat, especially when you haven't quite mastered their pattern, and even when you do know the pattern, if you haven't mastered it yet, it can be challenging, and they leave great rewards.
Right.
You know?
But while Calamity Ganon was kind of a downer, kind of a letdown, it was still at least a fight.
Yeah.
The Wild Beast Ganon battle was just... Everything you have to do was 100% prescribed for you.
Yeah.
You could program something to do your job for you, and it would do it absolutely fine. And honestly, you could probably program a Link to beat Calamity Ganon too. It just would take a little bit more work.
Sure. My only challenge that I had with the Beast version of Ganon was that I had never... One of the things... I had upgraded most of my armor and weapons and this and that, but... I had never spent really any time developing the horses because I like to go on foot. So basically I had a horse that had high affinity toward me, but like was very slow and wore out very quickly. So the challenge I had was more like, all right, let me try to catch up to this boss. Like my horse is dying on me before I can get around to his other side where the other weak point is. Not really the type of challenge that they intended, and not really the type of challenge that I enjoyed.
Speaking of unintentional challenges, I had a similar problem with that fight in that I kept shooting him and not realizing what was going on. What was going on was that the game didn't automatically switch my arrows to the holy arrows, so I was shooting him with the ancient arrows.
Oh, okay, instead of the light arrows or the holy arrows, yeah. Now, there were a couple of other categories of unsatisfying boss battles, and one of them you mentioned was the QuickTime boss battle. Now, be careful, because you're going to piss off tens of Shenmue fans here.
Hey, I liked Shenmue, and I'm not 100% against the QuickTime interactive cutscene boss, especially since I feel like story-based games have been like cutting more and more and more story content. To the interactive cutscene is kind of a way that I can get the story that I like, but gamer people can get the button pressing that they like. But yeah, we can pretty much thank God of War for the QuickTime event type of boss, which, I mean, it's just sad because it hardly ever connects to the core gameplay of the game that you're playing when you have those QuickTime events. But it's really the only way that you can have an effective cinematic cutscene, or
looped into the actual
It's really
boss,
the only way you can have an effective cinematic kind of boss fight with something that's enormous.
Yeah.
Because I played a lot of Final Fantasy 15, and there are a lot of fights that pit you and your party against really massive beasts, and it's really, really cool.
Yeah.
But just the framing is so difficult that it's hard to have a compelling fight like that, you know?
Yeah, it is challenging. So you think that the QuickTime event is sort of the...
I think QuickTime events give a really excellent spectacle.
Okay.
But I kind of tend to like it when the QuickTime events are somewhat minimized, and there's still an actual fight there.
Yeah.
Just maybe there's a sequence here and there where you've got QuickTime events going on.
Yeah. I was playing The Evil Within 2 a couple months back, and it was a lot of fun. Played with Anna, and she was just totally in it for the story. It was scary as hell, that game. And there are a couple moments in the beginning where something will grab you, and you have to like use a QuickTime event, but then do something else, right? So it's just this little tiny speck of a moment where you're like, oh crap, spam the button, spam the button. And the thing is with me too is that like I play so little PlayStation and like new gen
so you
stuff.
Don't recognize the buttons.
I'm like, which one's X? Which one's X? I mean, I know now, but like I think after actually Richie had given me his old PS4, I think that was like the first title I started playing. And it'd been a while since I played my PS3, so I couldn't remember the layout.
That'll happen to Allison a lot because I like to use the PlayStation controller in the PC, but the PC is all about Xbox lettering, so she'll be looking down like, where the hell is the A button?
Yeah, like, what is going on here? What is even happening? And there's another one that you mentioned in terms of like sort of crappy designed bosses, bullet sponges.
Yeah, and that one's probably the hardest one to kind of reconcile because undeniably having more health makes a boss more difficult to beat.
Sure.
But I find it so frustrating where it's just like, and 99% of the time it ends up being like the boss has one attack pattern until he's at a quarter health down. Then he has an attack pattern until 50, attack pattern until 25, maybe an attack pattern until 10, something like that. But it just, once I get the trick for the pattern, even when it's something that I have trouble executing on, and I know that having all of that health there is making it more difficult for me to execute persistently, it's just not fun to whittle down all that health.
I know, it isn't. I was playing this randomized dungeon crawler for the Dreamcast. I think it's called Evolution. And I was playing it years ago, and it was the quirkiest, like, silliest characters, fun dialogue, like, cute art style. You know, dungeons were relatively fun as they could be for sort of randomized. But the bosses were so goddamn boring. They were hard, and they were damage sponges. So it's like, it would just take you so long to beat them that I wanted to be able to continue playing the game because it was just so quirky and silly, but I'm like, the gameplay isn't good enough. You know what I mean? Like, I just can't do it.
Right.
You know, I just can't bring myself to continue to fight these bosses. It just takes too much of my time, you know, and I hate to say that because it had really good qualities otherwise.
Right.
You know, I also want to talk about some games that I really think hit the nail on the head.
Sure.
So there were a couple bosses I was remembering from playing various Zelda games that I really liked. One was the fish boss from Majora's Mask, whose name I can't pronounce, Gyrog. It's like Gyorg or something like that. I don't remember. But it was super challenging, very scary. You know, you had to go down into the water to attack this thing, and obviously it was a better swimmer than you were, and it just took a lot out of me when I was playing it, but I was so satisfied once I had beat it, plus the clock in Majora's Mask is running. It was a ton of fun to play that one. Another one was the Star-Lord boss from Twilight Princess, where you have the spinner that you're on. Not a short, hot girl, but an actual device that spins you along the wall, and it gets to a point where you're just playing a really, really fast-paced Zelda boss battle where you're jumping from side to side. This thing is blasting at you. You have to reach it so you can hit it, and it was just exhilarating. And it wasn't overly challenging. You know, some people, especially, you know, Zelda bosses aren't always known for their high level of challenge. You know, most people find them relatively easy, moderate to easy, but it was just exhilarating. It was just fun, you know, and I feel like that's ideal for a boss.
And I feel like that's one of the things that you really have to do is give the player that experience.
Yes.
Especially with modern games. If it's just me versus an enemy from the game that's bigger, why not just have me fight the enemies in the game?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's the thing, is that when you mentioned they got to give you the experience, you know, that's easy to say, but in reality, that's so important. Because think about this, you know, everyone who's watching at home here, how many bosses have you played in various games? It's probably so many you can't count them, you can't remember. Like, even in games that you love, you probably don't remember all the bosses, right? But how many bosses do you remember, right? That's what's important. Like, if you remember a boss, there must have been something about it that he was either so good that you remember it or so bad. Right? And if you have fond memories of playing a game years after because a particular boss was great, like Star-Lord for me in Twilight Princess, like, that means it's just a shining example of what a boss can be.
Right, and I look back to Super Metroid as one of the games that had some bosses that I really thought were well done. Like Kraid is one of the first real bosses in that game, and we're talking about the experience again. There's like a big hall leading up to him. It's really it's creepy stuff. It's getting you amped up for the fight, and then you get in there. You can't even see him. He's shooting some of his stuff at you, and then it finally all hell breaks loose. He comes through. He's multiple screens high, and it's not the hardest boss fight in the world. You can pick it up pretty easily. You just shoot it with missiles. Maybe shoot him with the pea shooter a little bit to get his mouth open so you can jam him down his throat. But
it's an experience.
It's an experience.
Yes.
But I mean, there are also boss fights in that game that aren't so much of an experience, but they're just the difficulty balance feels right on.
Yeah.
You know, I just recently replayed it, and most of the bosses, you know, I wasn't 100%ing the game. I was just sort of getting a lot of the stuff that I would normally pick up. But I mean, pretty much every boss that I fought, I got the pattern down, but I was still squeaking out of them with like 1 or 2 energy bars left.
Yeah. And I feel like that feeling of just barely making it out of a boss, that's a feeling. You know, where it's just like, I need to get one last hit on this guy, and if I just get this one last hit, maybe... Like, I was playing the demo for Octopath Traveler.
Everybody's been playing that demo except me.
It's pretty good.
And I'm like the #1 person who should be playing
You
that
like
demo.
Bravely Default, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it's made by the same people. And it's solid, and it's probably just because I'm bad at it, because I'm bad at most video games, but I think there were also some things with the battle system that I didn't understand. I was just mashing away. But I left the bosses, like just a couple of hit points. Like, I was just like, each time, because you play as 2 different characters in the at least the initial demo. I don't know if there are any more that came out.
There are going to be 8.
Well, I know, I'm in demos. Is what I mean. But, yeah, just barely scraped by. And it was just like, whew, oh, geez, okay.
Right, and I acknowledge that it's really hard to get that type of balance right. But I can tell when I'm playing a boss like Super Metroid and I die, that I have a chance.
Yeah.
That I should go through it again, and, you know, 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 tries, I should be able to get it by then.
Sure.
And then if I were to keep doing the boss, I feel like I could get to the point where I'm only getting hit every here and there, as opposed to sucking down most of what they're shooting at me.
Yeah.
But sometimes I'll play some of those challenging boss fights and I'll just feel like
what am I doing with my
running
life?
up against a brick wall. What can I
exactly.
do to get better?
Exactly. All right, so let us know in the comments below what bosses from what games were either particularly good and why, or particularly bad and why. We definitely would like to hear your own experiences.
Experiences being the key word.
Exactly, the operative word there. Other than that, thank you so much for subscribing, watching, hitting that notification button, and we will see you all next time.
We're going to get like 30,000 comments about people talking about the boss at their job.
Yeah, that's not what we mean. Thank you again, everybody, for watching. Want to remind you all that we will be doing a meet and greet at Retro Taku Video Games in Madison Heights, Michigan on September 8th. Pay attention to our social media accounts for more information as we get a little bit closer.